Hi, I'm Julie from the Tax Practitioners Board. Today I'm going to guide you through the process of registering with us as a tax agent or BAS agent. So let's have a look at what we'll be covering. I'll be covering information around the role of the TPB, who needs to register with us, registration requirements, ongoing obligations once you are registered, the Code of Professional Conduct, or CODE for short, and finally, the consequences for not complying with your ongoing obligations once registered. To start, I'd like to share some information about our purpose and obligations, as well as how we work with tax practitioners to strengthen the tax profession. The essential role of the TPB is to ensure that tax practitioner services are provided to the public in accordance with appropriate standards of professional and ethical conduct. We do this by assisting tax practitioners to comply with their obligations in the Tax Agent Services Act 2009, or TASA for short, ensuring tax practitioners have the necessary skills, experience and personal attributes to be registered, ensuring appropriate professional and ethical standards are being met, and by following up complaints about tax practitioners and taking action against those that are unregistered. Finally, underpinning our vision and purpose are our values, which include being impartial, committed to service, accountable, respectful, and ethical. These principles guide our staff and the broader actions of the TPB. Looking forward, we strive to be a leading government regulator that drives reform and uses best practice methodologies to ensure that the tax profession is worthy of our community's trust. Our vision speaks powerfully to the important role we play, not only in upholding the broader integrity of the tax system, but also in implementing whole of government reform initiatives. Importantly, we're also looking to improve our services for those tax practitioners who model professional and ethical conduct. In fact, achieving our purpose and realising our vision includes supporting honest tax practitioners, who make up the large majority, through registration services, complaint resolution, investigations of alleged misconduct, and where appropriate, sanctions. Now that you have an understanding of the TPB and our goals, let's talk about the registration requirements. Before I go into the specific details on tax and BAS agent registration, let's take a look at who needs to register with the TPB. The TPB registers entities either as individuals, companies, or partnerships. Generally, anyone who provides tax agent or BAS services for a fee or other reward must be registered with the TPB. A fee is considered a payment for service, and other reward is something given or received in return for service. So tax agent services include working out or giving advice on liabilities, obligations or entitlements of clients under a taxation law, representing a client in their dealings with the ATO, or services where the client would expect to rely on that service to satisfy tax liabilities, obligations or claim entitlements. Tax agent services also include BAS services. BAS services relate to working out or giving advice on liabilities, obligations or entitlements of clients under a BAS provision, or representing a client in their dealings with the ATO in relation to a BAS provision. So let's move on to look at why you would need to register with us. This includes if you are an employee or contractor of a registered tax practitioner and you do not provide tax agent or BAS agent services in your own right. However, in some cases, your company or partnership may require you to register to make up their sufficient number. Also, a legal practitioner who prepares returns or statements while acting for a trust or deceased estate. It's important to know that there are civil penalty provisions in the TASA for providing a tax practitioner service for a fee or other reward or advertising these services while unregistered. So if you decide that you should register, you need to consider if you're eligible. To register, you must be at least 18 years of age, satisfy the qualifications and experience requirements, be a fit and proper person, maintain or be able to maintain professional indemnity insurance that meets our requirements. So let's have a look at each of these individually. To become a registered tax practitioner, you must satisfy the qualifications and experience requirements set out in the Tax Agent Services Regulations 2022. We'll refer to these as regulations today. You can apply to register as a tax practitioner through several pathways, depending on your qualifications and experience. So let's look at the pathways you would need to follow to register. For registration as a BAS agent, there are two pathways to consider. The first, item 101, accounting qualifications, you will need at least a certificate for financial services in bookkeeping or accounting. You will also need to have completed a board-approved course in basic GST and BAS taxation principles and have 1,400 hours of relevant experience in the past 4 years. Under item 102, membership of professional association, you will need a certificate for financial services in bookkeeping or accounting. You will also need a board-approved course in basic GST and BAS taxation principles, a voting membership of a recognised BAS or tax agent association, and have a minimum of 1,000 hours of relevant experience in the past 4 years. With your primary qualification, you must have been awarded a certificate for or higher qualification, for example, a diploma, advanced diploma or degree in bookkeeping or accounting. The qualification must have been obtained from a registered training organisation or an equivalent institution. Your GST BAS qualification may be included in your primary qualification, but it should include a component in the TASA including the code. Otherwise, you must have completed a separate unit covering this component. We will also accept a course in GST BAS taxation principles obtained through a process of recognition of prior learning, provided it satisfies our assessment requirements. To become a registered tax agent, individual applicants have multiple pathways to choose from. Under item 201, tertiary qualifications in accountancy, you will need a degree or postgraduate award in accountancy. You will also need to have completed board-approved courses and have a minimum of 12 months experience in the past 5 years. Under item 202, tertiary qualifications in a discipline other than accountancy, you will need a degree or postgraduate award in a relevant discipline. You may also need to have completed board-approved courses if it is relevant to the tax agent services you provide, and you must have a minimum of 12 months experience in the past 5 years. Under item 203, diploma or higher award in accountancy, you will need to have a diploma or higher in accountancy. You will also need to have completed board-approved courses and have a minimum of 2 years experience in the past 5 years. Under item 204, tertiary qualifications in law, you will need an academic qualification to be an Australian legal practitioner. You will also need to have completed board-approved courses in basic accountancy principles and Australian taxation law and have a minimum of 12 months of experience in the past 5 years. Under item 205, work experience, you will need to have completed a board-approved course in basic accountancy, Australian taxation law and commercial law. You will also need 8 years of experience in the past 10 years. Under item 206, membership of a professional association, you will need to be a voting member of a recognised tax agent association and have 8 years of full-time relevant experience in the past 10 years. If you are applying to be a tax agent to only provide tax financial advice services for a fee or other reward, you can apply under Pathway Items 207 to 211. For individual tax agents registered under Pathways 207 to 210, the regulations require that you are an Australian Financial Services or AFS licensee or a representative of an AFS licensee at the time of your application, or have been an AFS licensee or a representative of an AFS licensee within the 90 days preceding your application. So let's look at the different pathways. Under Item 207, Tertiary Qualifications, you will need a degree or postgraduate award in a relevant discipline. A relevant discipline includes finance, financial planning, commerce, economics, business tax, accountancy, or law. You will also need to have completed board-approved courses and have an equivalent of 12 months experience in the past 5 years. Under Item 208, Diploma or Higher Award, you will need to have a diploma or higher in the relevant disciplines which I just mentioned. You will also have to have completed board-approved courses and have an equivalent of 18 months experience in the past 5 years. Next, under Item 209, Work Experience, you will need to have completed board-approved courses. You will also need the equivalent of 3 years of experience in the past 5 years. Under Item 210, Membership of a Professional Association, you will need to be a voting member of a recognised tax agent association and have the equivalent of 6 years of experience in the past 8 years. And finally, under Item 211, Registered Tax Financial Advisor, you will need to have been registered as a tax financial advisor immediately before 1 January 2022 and apply to register as a tax agent before 1 January 2023. Now, as you may appreciate, there are so many training institutions and courses available that it's not possible to go through all the board-approved courses with you today. However, as a rule of thumb, a board-approved course must give you sufficient scope to advise the public on the relevant tax issues. On completion of a board-approved course, you should be able to explain, critically evaluate, and apply the rules of the relevant principles. If you need help assessing your qualifications, we have a handy tool available on our website. Our Qualifications Check tool lets you check if your qualifications meet the registration requirements, and you can search for courses and units approved by the board. If you have completed a qualification that is not listed on Qualifications Check, you can submit a request to have the qualification assessed. When you submit a request, the board will consider your qualifications on their merits with regard to our requirements and the course content. It's important to note that a decision to prove a unit or a combination of units for one person does not necessarily mean it's approved for everyone. Circumstances between individuals can vary, and this may affect the board's decision. It's also important to note here that you are currently unable to self-assess board-approved courses if you are applying under Tax Agent Pathways Items 207 to 211. Let's now take a closer look at the relevant experience requirement. Relevant experience includes work as a registered tax or BAS agent, work under the supervision and control of a registered tax or BAS agent, or work of another kind. For your experience to count, it must include substantial involvement in one or more types of tax agent or BAS services. In addition, the service must be provided in circumstances where an entity can reasonably be expected to rely on the service to satisfy liabilities obligations, or claim entitlements under a tax or BAS provision. Most work in preparing the books and records of a business for the purpose of that business completing their BAS obligations, including their pay-as-you-go withholding and instalment obligations, are considered relevant experience. However, work in preparing a return for a state tax obligation, such as a payroll tax, is not considered relevant experience. You cannot rely solely on BAS service experience to register as a tax agent. However, it may count towards your overall experience for registration as a tax agent. When it comes to work of another kind, we may accept work other than that as a registered BAS or tax agent, or work under the supervision and control of a registered BAS or tax agent, provided you demonstrate that your experience includes substantial involvement in providing one or more tax agent or BAS services. Experience that may be considered under the work of another kind category includes work undertaken as an academic teacher in relevant taxation laws, or experience gained in a simulated practice for training purposes. However, the TPB will only accept 15% of this type of experience out of the total required hours. For the purposes of registering under Tax Agent Pathway items 207 to 210, you must demonstrate relevant tax financial advice experience. This can include work as a registered tax agent, registered tax financial advisor before 1 January 2022, or work as a qualified relevant tax provider. It could also include work of another kind approved by us, or work under the supervision and control of a registered tax financial advisor before 1 January 2022, a registered tax agent, or a qualified tax relevant provider. To demonstrate your relevant experience, you need to complete and attach a statement of relevant experience to your application. If you are relying on experience gained under the supervision and control of a registered tax practitioner, they must verify the information you've provided in the statement of relevant experience and comment on your ability to provide tax agent or BAS services to a competent standard. The Statement of Relevant Experience form allows you to explain how the relevant experience was gained, the tax agent or BAS services provided and for what period, including the number of clients, and statements or returns prepared. Comments from your supervising tax practitioner or employer about your level of competence, and any additional information you may wish to provide regarding your relevant experience. You should provide a statement of relevant experience for each role you have had in providing tax practitioner services. You will need to demonstrate in your statement how and why your experience should be considered as relevant to registration as a tax or BAS agent. Simply listing the experience will not be enough for the board to make a considered decision. If you have gained your relevant experience for the required period working under various employers or supervisors, you must complete one Statement of Relevant Experience form for each employer or supervisor. Alternatively, you can provide us with a statutory declaration detailing the tax agent or BAS services provided, including the reasons you are unable to provide an appropriately signed Statement of Relevant Experience. You must also provide 2 forms of independent verification of your experience. Before we move on, I will quickly touch on company or partnership registrations. A company or partnership must be registered with us to provide tax practitioner services. Each director or individual partner must be at least 18 years of age and be a fit and proper person. The company or partnership must maintain or be able to maintain professional indemnity insurance that meets our requirements, and they must have a sufficient number of registered individual tax practitioners to provide services and supervision on behalf of the entity. The company or partnership must not be under external administration and must not have been convicted of a serious offence involving fraud or dishonesty during the previous 5 years. Now that we've talked about the requirements to apply, let's look at how you apply to register. Applications to register are made via our website at tpb.gov.au. Just a note here that applications for tax agent pathway items 207 to 211 are currently manual and must be downloaded from our website before they can be completed. So, before you apply, you need to make sure you have all the documentation. These requirements are clearly set out on our website, but they include electronic copies of certificates, academic transcripts and course outlines to show you have completed the required qualifications, statements of relevant experience from a supervising tax practitioner or employer to demonstrate you have the required amount of experience, details of a voting membership for any recognised professional association, Australian issued proof of identity such as a driver's licence, Medicare card or password. There is also an application fee to be paid when you apply, except for tax agent pathway item 211. We will advise you after the decision is made to either grant or reject your application for registration. We aim to process complete applications within 30 days of receiving them. If your application for registration is approved, you will be registered for a period of at least 3 years. If an application is rejected, we will advise you of the reasons for our decision, such as gaps in your qualifications or experience, and of your appeal rights. We will also notify the ATO of our decision to approve or reject your application. Okay, let's go through the tax and BAS agent obligations and some of the things you will need to do to maintain your registration. Registration requirements are ongoing and all registered tax practitioners must continue to meet them. To remain registered with us, you must meet the ongoing registration requirements, including having PI insurance cover, undertaking continuing professional education for individuals only, satisfying fit and proper requirements, meeting your personal tax obligations, and notifying the TPB of changes to your registration details. Let's look at professional indemnity insurance in more detail. Professional indemnity insurance is a consumer protection mechanism to compensate your clients in the event that they suffer a loss due to an act, error or omission as a result of the tax practitioner services you provide. If you charge a fee or receive a reward for the provision of tax or BAS agent services, you will need to have a professional indemnity insurance policy or cover that meets our requirements. If you do not charge a fee or receive a reward, for example if you are an employee or a contractor, you will not need to have your own professional indemnity insurance policy to meet our requirements. However, if you are an employee or a contractor, you will be required to provide us with the name of your employer or principal and their registration number. Regardless of whether you charge a fee or receive a reward, you must notify us of how you meet our professional indemnity insurance requirements. Also, when selecting your professional indemnity insurance cover, you may want to consider coverage for cyber attacks. We've updated our guidance relating to cybersecurity, which encourages all tax practitioners to check their professional indemnity insurance to determine if they are covered in the event of cyber attacks. It's important to be mindful that professional indemnity insurance does not generally cover for events such as third-party cyber liability, first-party hacker damage, cyber extortion, data breach notification costs, and public relation costs. We recommend you consider appropriate risk mitigation for cyber threats, including the option of supplementing your insurance to cover cyber breaches. Another ongoing registration requirement I'd like to focus on is the need for tax practitioners to notify us, generally within 30 days, of changes in writing whenever they cease to meet any of the tax practitioner registration requirements, circumstances change or there's a change that affects their registration, such as the composition of the partnership or company changes, or there is a change in business or email address, or any other circumstances relevant to their registration. The next ongoing registration requirement I'd like to focus on is the fit and proper person requirement. This requirement applies to individual applicants and each individual partner and director in respect of partnership and company applicants. In deciding if a tax practitioner is a fit and proper person, we must consider: is the person of good fame, integrity and character? Have they been convicted of a serious taxation offence or an offence involving fraud or dishonesty? Are they an undischarged bankrupt? Have they been sentenced to a term of imprisonment? And do they meet their personal tax obligations? For companies and partnerships, you must not be under external administration, and you must not have been convicted of a serious taxation offence or an offence involving fraud or dishonesty during the previous 5 years. The last ongoing registration requirement I want to look at today is continuing professional education. As I mentioned earlier, all registered tax practitioners must undertake the appropriate amount of CPE. For BAS agents, this is generally a minimum of 90 hours of CPE within a standard 3-year registration period, with a minimum of 20 hours each year. For tax agents, this is generally a minimum of 120 hours of CPE within a standard 3-year registration, with a minimum of 20 hours each year. Any education activity relevant to the tax practitioner services you provide that maintains, develops or promotes your skills, knowledge or attributes is considered to be a CPE activity under our policy. You should use your professional judgment when selecting CPE activities, but some examples considered appropriate under our policy include webinars, seminars, workshops, courses and lectures, structured conferences and discussion groups, including by phone or video conference, tertiary courses or other education activities provided by an appropriate organisation, research, writing and presentations by a registered tax or BAS agent of technical publications or structured training, computer or internet assistance courses, attendance at structured in-house training on tax-related subjects, and relevant CPE activities provided by a recognised professional association. It's also important to note that if you're a member of a recognised professional association, your compliance with their CPE requirements will be accepted as meeting our requirements if the CPE activities are relevant to the tax agent or BAS services you provide, are provided by persons or organisations with suitable qualifications and or practical experience in the subject area, and they need to meet our minimum amount of CPE hours. I want to move on now and take a high-level view of the Code of Professional Conduct, or CODE for short. From the time you register with us, you will be required to comply with obligations under the Code. The Code has 14 items, grouped under 5 key principles. Let's take a look at them now. The first principle is honesty and integrity. Under this principle, you must comply with the taxation laws in the conduct of your personal affairs. Additionally, if you receive money or other property from or on behalf of a client and you hold the money or other property on trust, you must account to your client for it. Under the independence principle, you must act lawfully in the best interest of your client and have in place adequate arrangements for the management of conflicts of interest. The confidentiality principle outlines that you must not disclose any information relating to a client's affairs to a third party without your client's permission unless there is a legal duty to do so. Under the competence principle, you must provide a competent service and take reasonable care in ascertaining a client's state of affairs and ensure that taxation laws are applied correctly. Under the Code, you also have a series of other responsibilities outlining that you must not knowingly obstruct the proper administration of the taxation laws, advise your clients of their rights and obligations under the taxation laws that are related to the services you provide, maintain professional indemnity insurance that meets our requirements, and respond to requests and directions from the Board in a timely, responsible, and reasonable manner. Okay, let's finish up by taking a look at penalties and sanctions. Before I go into the details of penalties and sanctions, I think it's important that I point out that the vast majority of registered tax practitioners are compliant. They comply with our code and other legislative requirements. The Australian community has a high level of trust in its tax practitioners, and this speaks volumes about the excellent work performed by the professionals in the profession. However, we also know there are a small group that don't comply, and we classify them as high risk. These are the ones who we need to take firm action on to address their high risk behaviour and to safeguard the integrity of the tax and super systems. If we find that a tax practitioner has failed to comply with the TASA, including the code, we may impose one or more administrative sanctions or seek a court-imposed civil penalty. The sanctions that we can impose include a written caution and orders. Now, orders may require a tax practitioner to do certain things. This could include completing a course of education or training that we specify, only providing certain services, and providing services only under supervision. We can also apply a suspension and a termination of registration. The Federal Court can also impose a monetary penalty for each breach of the TASA. Now, the severity of any sanction that we impose depends on the nature and extent of the breach and the individual circumstances of each case. Tax practitioners do have the right of review with the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. The AAT provides an independent review. Registered tax practitioners are also subject to various civil penalty provisions which impose financial penalties for certain conduct. This may include making false or misleading statements to the Commissioner of Taxation, signing declarations or other statements that have been prepared by someone who is unregistered or not under the supervision of a registered tax practitioner. Well, that's all from me, but if you'd like more information, you can visit our website at tpb.gov.au. To keep up to date, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to receive notifications when we post new videos. We record all our educational webinars and have a comprehensive library available for you to view. We also have a newsletter that goes out each month called TPB eNews. It includes all the latest TPB news, and you can subscribe to it at tpb.gov.au/newsroom. Thanks for joining me, and for everyone here at the TPB, we wish you luck with your career as a tax practitioner.